Hi guys, it's me, Ellie again, and thank you for watching this video. Today I want to talk about spiritual ascension, and I want to share my own experience with it. So, before I get started on talking about my own experiences, there are some signs and symptoms that are listed online about what ascension is and how to know when it's happening and things like that and whatnot. I'm going to tell you the truth. I believe that a lot of what's online is correct, but I also think a lot of what's online is incorrect. And I will explain more about that as I delve into my own experiences and how it relates to what is said online versus what I've experienced. So, before I ascended about a couple of weeks ago, I started to feel this strong need to go back to my hometown, Michigan, as I moved down in the South, several states away, about 9 years ago. I've always felt a need to go up north, but, you know, there was a lot of different reasons I couldn't. Like, money was stopping me. Someone I was dating didn't want me to go up there by myself, but I felt like I needed to go there by myself for some reason and things like that. At the time, I believed it was just me wanting to see old friends. Well, recently, I've been feeling, like last month, I was feeling a really strong need to go to Michigan. But before all that happened, I started to go through a period in my life where I wanted to actually start making peace with people that I may have done wrong in the past, and then I wanted to do things like forgive the people that did me wrong. Like, you know, I made mistakes, you made mistakes, you know, I hope we can move past this, and, you know, basically make peace with yourself and with other people kind of deal, and make things on a better terms, I guess. And, you know, most people, you know, they're like, hey, you know, I don't remember you doing anything wrong, or, you know, I forgive, and, you know, stuff like that. You know, so I did reconnect with some old friends that I would consider to be true friends to me. I just don't know what really happened, to be honest. I guess moving down here kind of made me disconnected from some people. But anyways, and then, it's going to sound insane to some people, but 13 years ago, there was a guy I dated, and I always had relationship problems, like where I always kind of felt like I had one foot out the door and I couldn't really quite put my finger on why. And I always felt like, in a lot of my tarot card readings I did for myself, it always talked about, you know, you need to reach out to old lovers to let them know that you are a better person because of them. And for some reason, I danced around one person that I dated 13 years ago briefly, but during a really dark period in my life where my parents were separated, you know, school wasn't going good, my friendships at school were strained, and, you know, just a really bad period in my life, you could say. And I dated someone, a young man, and he was 4 years older, but, you know, didn't really have a whole lot going for him at the time. But back then, you know, when you're 17 years old, you don't care if someone doesn't have a job, a car, things like that, because quite frankly, most in my age group, it didn't really happen, and he was 4 years older, so it's just kind of like, oh, whatever. And he also didn't have a good reputation around town, and all the social workers at school and everything, you know, were worried when they got wind that I was dating this person, okay? So my parents got involved and things like that, and eventually they made it almost nigh impossible to see him, and, you know, I snuck out to go see him. I walked a whole 9 miles one night, almost 10, really, just to go see him, is how strong-willed I was when I was 17 years old. But then, you know, we were ripped apart, you know, had no chance to say goodbye, blah, 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 things like that, and I feel like that kind of traumatized me in ways. So I decided, during this period, in the last few months, I'm going to go reach out to him and make some peace. And then, you know, he basically told me what happened, still has feelings for me after all these years. And I'm like, oh God, what did I get myself into? Say the least. And then, you know, like, we talked for a little bit and everything like that. And then I kind of started to realize why things work out the way they do. Found out that he does not have a job. He's been unemployed for a few years. Moved back in with his mother. He just does not have much of anything going on for him. And, you know, we're just in very different places in life. And it started to become very clear to me that we also have very different paths in life. And we would have separated naturally anyways, whether it was forced, like basically what my parents did, or over time. Which is, it is what it is. And then some other things just really started to make me question who his character and things like that. Like talking about leaving his daughter behind to come move here and all this other stuff to be with me. And I'm like, yeah, it sounds all romantic and great when you think about it. But I mean, this is the real world. You can't just go abandoning your kid. Like, and he hadn't seen his daughter in years. And I was just like, okay, this is red flag, red flag, red flags coming up everywhere. There's a reason for all this. So I remember I knew that I was getting somewhere with closing chapters in my life, because I had a dream about going in a really dark, cold submarine. And I looked in the window and it was getting darker and darker as we were going down, 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 down. And I looked up the meaning of that dream, and I realized that the reason why I was having that dream, it was because I was exploring some very deep-rooted emotional issues, and I was carefully addressing them now, and, you know, basically getting to the bottom of things as to why I have certain emotional problems, like, you know, always having one foot out the door in relationships and stuff. So I felt like, you know, what if I needed to go see him again? And then literally when I got to Michigan, everything changed. Like, I met with my sister. I met with a friend of ours that's more spiritual and things like that. She really wanted to be there. Hi, Ariel. So yeah, literally as soon as, you know, I got a tarot card reading from her, and, you know, we started to talk more about, like, clearing chakras, and mine were cleared out as well. It started to become very clear to me that my trip to Michigan was not about seeing old friends and everything like I thought it was going to be. It was literally a spiritual mission to go there, to get my chakras clear, to get that tarot reading, and to see my sister, and to see Ariel again, and to basically unplug and recharge, to basically make it so I was ready to move on in my spiritual mission. And I found out I have a really big role here that is a totally different subject. This is a completely different subject, to say the least. But yeah, so I severely underestimated the importance of my trip to Michigan when I went up there. Memorial Day weekend. I went up there for about 8 days. I got my chakras cleared, and, you know, I started to get way more in touch with my spirituality, started getting into divination with the pendulum and stuff like that. This is my pendulum. This is one of my 2 pendulums right here. So I feel like I started to really get more in touch with my spiritual side when I was up there, and, you know, barely did anything, went by the pool, you know, just literally recharged and caught up on sleep and things like that. And something very interesting happened on my way back. So my flight was delayed by an hour and a half because of a thunderstorm here. I remember we got boarded at like 5:30, and then we started to pull out from the gate, and then they said that, you know, we're waiting on a weather report at 5:45 and wait until 6:15 to get the update. 6:15 comes, we're told that, you know, we got to stay put for another, like, 45 minutes or so, and if we don't leave if we don't take off by 7, we have to go back to the gate. And I was like, oh. So we were sitting in the plane for like an hour and a half and stuff, and then eventually we would take off at 7. And something really awesome happened. So, like, it was a little turbulent on the way back, but it wasn't too bad. Literally 10 minutes before, my plane didn't just fly past the rainbow, we flew basically through it. Like, other planes I saw were kind of going around it. Like, I saw, like, where the rainbow was going down and stuff like that. Mine literally went through it 10 minutes before I landed in Charlotte, where I live. Well, near where I live. But anyway, yeah, so, I felt like when I was going through that airplane, through that rainbow, I felt like I was going through a portal of some sort. I couldn't explain it, but it felt like this is not something that happens to many people, and I literally felt like my trip to Michigan, my closing chapters in my life, and literally healing from past traumas and everything, I felt like something great was going to happen soon. And then a couple of nights later, I was hanging out with my best friend Terry. And he and I were hanging out and stuff like that. And then, like, he and I were having a spiritual conversation about everything that was going on and everything that happened in my life. And we tell each other everything. So, as I'm getting ready to go home, like, there's no rain forecast for that night. And literally, it starts to downpour as I'm talking about getting ready to go home. I was like, okay, that's just great. So then I was like, all right, well, it's going to torrential downpour. I know how it is here in the Carolinas. Let's just let it rain, you know, for a few minutes, and I'll walk out to my car. You know, we were talking about a bunch of other still spiritual stuff, and, you know, I was kind of like eyeballing the rain, and he was too, and stuff like that. And then every time I talked about leaving, it would just continue to downpour again. And literally throughout the conversation for the next 30 minutes, that happened 3 times. Super weird, right? And then I was talking about my pendulum and how the design of it has, like, the tree of life, and how in, like, the movie Thor and in the Norse paganism and stuff, it's about it's called the tree of Yggdrasil and the 9 realms and stuff like that. Literally right after I mentioned tree of Yggdrasil and tree of life, it started to downpour again. And I was like, all right, well, this is not weird. It's like someone's listening to our conversation right now. It was just the weirdest thing ever. And eventually we started to see lightning, and it literally took the weather on both of our phones and on my friend's computer 30 minutes to update. And when it was still torrential downpouring, when he looked at the weather on his laptop, it just said cloudy. It said nothing about rain. Nothing about rain. It was like, and it's been downpouring for over an hour, and he was telling me that. I was like, wow. So yeah, but the Ascension, so when I was driving home that night, which was 2 nights after I had come home from my trip to up Michigan, I noticed that, you know, I kept thinking to myself, you know, because in Michigan, back when I was in Michigan, you know, my sister and we were all talking about, like, Ascension and stuff like that, and my sister's pendulum did accurately predict when it was supposed to happen, which was, like, this upcoming Tuesday around 11:45. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then, well, we'll see what happens. And on my way home, you know, I kept thinking about like what my spiritual mission in life could be, and I was thinking about all these mountains I've ever moved in my life. Like I basically taught myself how to read, so I overcame the mountain of illiteracy. I've overcome a lot of traumas in my life. All those mountains I've moved basically, and stuff like that. And I was just thinking about all these things I've been through in my life, all these so-called mountains and everything. And then I remember seeing a sign for King's Mountain right as I was thinking about this stuff. I was like, okay, interesting. And then I was having songs playing randomly on my phone, and right around when all this was happening, and I passed by that sign, it said, the song was playing on a Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack, "Ain't No Mountain High Enough." All this was happening at one time. And I wasn't even consciously thinking about it. Like, didn't really think about the ascension supposed to happen at 11:45 totally. And I was just thinking, you know, whatever. And then at one point when I was driving home, like my third eye started to tingle real, like, pretty obviously. And eventually my whole head was. And then, like, eventually my whole body was. And there was, like, waves of warmth going throughout. And then when this was happening, I really started to feel like I just understood. I understood why I was here. I understood why everything happened to me. I understood why everything in this life has happened the way it has. And I felt like I was meant to be in this exact moment. Every event that's happened in my life, every little choice I've made in my life, has made it to where I am in this very moment experiencing this thing right here, right now. And that is probably why the weather was preventing me from leaving 30 minutes earlier. So I feel like for this ascension, I was meant to be driving home and was supposed to be precisely in that specific area when it started happening. It's supposed to be in the universe literally made it to where I was listening to that song, I was in that exact location seeing that song, and exactly when I was thinking about moving mountains in my life. And I feel like my having cleared, you know, making peace with people, exploring deep-rooted emotional issues, and addressing them face on, and basically giving yourself an honest look at yourself as to why everything may have happened the way it did, for better or for worse. And I feel like ultimately ascension is a choice. It is a choice to ascend in the sense that, you know, once your soul has decided to be 100% dedicated to getting back to source, getting back to being in touch with your spirituality, being in touch with the true you, that is when it will happen, and that is when you will deprogram. That is when you will start to feel different, and that's when everything in your life is going to change. And actually, if you noticed, I actually did an estate sale a couple of weeks before, and I felt inclined to buy these 3 butterfly photos. And I feel like looking at these photos now, I really feel like I made the right choice in buying them, because metamorphosis, you know, when caterpillars go in their cocoons, they're basically shedding the old themselves, and then when they come out, they are a beautiful butterfly. I feel like my buying those photos was symbolic of my soul choosing to ascend and being dedicated to my spiritual mission and growth, and being dedicated to literally shedding the old me to become the new me. And I will say that I've noticed when I'm around other people, like, ever since I ascended, like, I noticed, like, people react a little differently to me. Like, things don't bother me the way they used to. Like, if, you know, I get into an argument with my ex-boyfriend about something stupid, right? It just doesn't bother me the way it used to anymore. Or if, like, you know, someone says something or gives me a funny look, or I accidentally do something wrong when I'm driving and someone honks and gives me the evil eye and starts cussing me out the window. I just don't care, you know? It's just like, to me, it's just like, well, okay, well, shit happens. It does. And I just kind of feel like, it's like, you know what? Stuff like that just doesn't bother me anymore. And I also noticed, like, my body feels different. It's hard to explain, but, like, after I got my chakras cleared and, you know, after I ascended this stuff, like, my body feels lighter. And I feel like, in ways, my body heals a little bit quicker now. It's, you know, it's not really, you know, something that it has been objectively measured, obviously, but, you know, I just know it to be true, and I feel like there's a lot of things that people don't understand about ascension. Like, I feel like people sit around and wait for it to happen, like, oh, I'm seeing all these signs of ascending and stuff, and, oh, my third eye is a little tingling, oh, I've been getting flu-like symptoms and stuff like that. It's like, well, okay, great, but what have you done to make yourself grow spiritually? Have you made peace with anyone you've done wrong? Have you forgiven yourself for doing wrong by these people? Have you done anything to get over your past traumas, to get over, you know, what's causing you pain in this life? And have you truly dedicated yourself to this spiritual mission, even if you don't completely have all the information at hand right now? Have you surrendered to the fact that you are here on a spiritual mission, whatever that may be, and chosen that, and trusting that Source will tell you everything, literally as you need to know it? Instead of being busy worrying about the future, as we are programmed to do, worrying about bills we have to pay, worrying about custody exchanges, picking kids up from school, getting to work on time, you know, things like that. It's hard to do. Sometimes it's hard to live in the moment, right? And it's hard to see that we are exactly where we are when we are meant to be there. And I feel like my having ascended, I realized that it really is a choice. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that we see online, I feel like it does not encourage people to actually ascend. Instead, it encourages the idea that ascending is a process that happens, you know, only, you know, after you do certain things, or after you know certain things and think a certain way. It's like the deprogramming, all of the soul healing and everything, and having a very clear mission, picture of what your mission looks like in this world. Everything will come after you make the choice to be truly dedicated to your spiritual mission, not necessarily before you know all of that. I feel like a lot of the ascension signs and symptoms are correct, like the tingling. Sometimes you feel a little bit funny, like, you know, like your whole body is just, you know, shifting, and, you know, maybe your heart chakra's clearing up or whatever, but it's just kind of like, I still feel like when I read this stuff, it doesn't give people a sense of empowerment. It just gives people a way to look at a list and think, okay, well, I'm going to sit around and wait for ascension, and if I see any symptoms, I'm going to look into it. No. If you want to ascend, you need to do things like making peace with people you've done wrong. I think that past life regression, if you can do it yourself and, you know, start asking like a pendulum or tarot cards or some other divination tool the right questions. Which, by the way, I think a lot of people, when they get into stuff like that, they ask the wrong questions. I feel like you need to ask questions like, have I ever, like, murdered anybody? Have I ever robbed a bank? Have I ever done this? And why, like, is this person my twin flame? And, you know, get into stuff like that. And, you know, I found out, for example, one of my friends, he died when he was 9 years old, and he died from a disease, and that is one reason why, you know, thinking about children with cancer triggers especially strong emotions in him. And then, and why he always hated the number 9, and he would cry before he turned 9 years old, because, like, he just was getting upset about thinking about being 9 years old. And I guess it's because he died when he was 9 years old in his last life. And he had cancer, and I think he probably had some kind of disease, was part of a clinical trial, and then he got cancer and died. You know, stuff like that. And I feel like when you start to get into stuff like that, you know, you kind of figure out more of your past karma from past lives too, so you can kind of just accept, oh, that's why I feel this way about this, and that's why I feel that way about that. And I feel like you can kind of heal more when you understand more and understand why. Like, I feel like, you know, it's kind of cool to know things like how many past lives you may have lived, what star system you probably lived in, and stuff like that. But I feel like that's more superficial, and it doesn't really get to the root of what your past karma is. Like, you need to understand what the past karma is from this lifetime, and even past lifetimes. So, I mean, I got more into my past lives after I ascended, but I also, you know, started to understand more of my own soul, my own mission here after I ascended. So I kind of feel like me asking these questions about my own past life and stuff became easier, because I feel like I'm being guided now by source and not just a higher self or even ascended master guides to answer these questions. So, ultimately, like I said before, I feel like ascension is 100% a choice. And it's a choice that our souls ultimately make when we feel more emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually prepared to make that decision. And there are ways to make it so that you can get there, but I sure as heck know for a fact it is not sitting around waiting for certain symptoms to appear and getting excited about it. No, you got to act. You got to go create. You got to go do all these things to, you know, start getting back in touch with source. And then when you ascend is when you start getting closer and closer. So, I mean, that's my experience. You can take it or leave it, but I mean, I know my truth and whatnot. So, thank you for watching this video. I hope it was of some value to you, even if, you know, you don't really take my word for it. I will say that 2 days after I ascended, I actually have a picture of a butterfly landing on my left shoulder blade. And I've been noticing things like insects, like butterflies, have been approaching me more. They've been, and then I noticed like children react differently around me. Like they're much more happier to see me, even though they were never unhappy to see me. But it's just kind of like, you know, they feel like more of a pull to me, and it's really interesting. Even people are starting to notice like my features more and are commenting on them more. It's weird. It's almost like they could see more radiance coming from me or something. I don't know. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. I hope it was of value to you one way or another, and I hope it helps you to make the decision, red pill or blue pill. Thank you. Have a good night.